Okay, this video is going to deal with an introduction to while loops at the very beginning of chapter 6. And so loops are going to be a very important part of your coding, so it will allow you more opportunities to create more interesting programs. And so a loop is a structure that allows repeated execution of a block of statements. So it could be one statement that repeats, it could be 5 statements of code that repeat, but at any rate a loop will allow you to repeat certain lines of code so you don't have to copy and paste them all the time. An iteration is just simply one execution of a loop. It's just one execution of a loop. So if we were to, let's say, go out to the track and run a lap, you would, let's say, start here and you go around the track and you end up in the same place. Well, that's one iteration. It's one loop. You can see how it kind of makes a loop. There's 3 types of loops. There is the while loop, which is W-H-I-L-E, this word right here. There's also what's called the for loop, F-O-R. And then there's also a thing called the do while loop, which looks like this: do ... while. Alright, so that is another type of loop. We will cover all 3 of those. Now, loops, very importantly, loops can be either definite or indefinite. And so, definite, right, type it up here, or indefinite. Definite, if you look at the root word of it, it's defined, and that would be when, if as a coach I go out and I say to you, okay, I need you to run 5 laps. Okay, I've defined the number of laps that you need to run. And so a programmer that uses a definite loop programs it so it runs a certain number of times. An indefinite loop, if it's indefinite, if I just said to you, okay, go out and run some laps. Okay, so I didn't say 6, I didn't say 5, so I didn't say any number, any definite number, and so you don't know when the person's going to stop running. And that's going to happen with loops, where a certain event or maybe a user decision is going to decide when the loop stops. Right now, though, we're going to deal with what's called a definite loop, definite while loop, and so we are going to learn how to program it to execute a loop so many times. A definite while loop executes a block of code a predetermined number of times. Predetermined, or you could say a specific, but it's something that's determined beforehand. Alright, so we're going to take a look, we're going to walk through a loop. Now here is some code that includes a loop. And so we're going to see how this works. So we go along here, and the first line of code is going to, let's see if I can bring this down, there we go, is going to declare and assign the variable count, and it's going to call it 1. And then the next line is going to be the beginning of the while loop, and so it's going to be, this is called a while statement. So a while statement looks like an if statement, and so this is the same thing as in an if statement. You have a Boolean expression. So these would be good things to label on this paper. So you have a Boolean expression in the while statement. What happens is it's this variable is tested to see if it is actually less than 4, if it makes this true or false. Because this is a true Boolean expression, true value, it jumps into the loop. And so it prints hello. And so maybe I should just go like this. Okay, you're not going to help me out here. Huh, that's interesting. There we go. Okay, so it's going to print hello, and then it goes down here, and then this count is assigned count plus 1. Well, what's the value of count right now? It's 1, and it's going to add 1 to it. So now count becomes, let's go ahead and get rid of that. Count becomes, it was 1, and now it becomes 2. And so actually 1 is no longer there. Now at this brace right here, this brace says something to us. It says end of loop, go back to while. And so that'd be another good thing to write down there. So at the end of a loop, you're not done. You have to go back up to the while statement, and you got to see, is the Boolean expression true or not. Now see, before count was 1, but see now it's 2. And so let's go through the loop again, because 2 is less than 4, and then so we're going to print hello. And so this is what happens, shows up on the screen, and then count is going to be increased by 1 again. I think I shouldn't have done it that way. Let's see. So count's increased by 1, so it becomes 3. So now we are in a situation where we're at the end of the loop, so we go back to while. And now what you should start to see is a pattern going on here, is this number here is getting closer and closer to making this Boolean expression false. And that's an important thing to understand, is we want the loop eventually to stop. Otherwise it's infinite, and it goes on forever, and so which isn't going to help you. And so we're going to we are noticing here that the count variable is getting closer and closer to making the Boolean expression false. So it's still true though, so we go into the loop again, and we are going to print hello again. And then count gets increased by 1, and so now it's 4. So we are at the end of the loop. We go back up to the while statement, and now 4 is that less than 4, and no it's not. So now this is false, and so because it's false, we kick out of the loop and we go beyond its borders. And so this is very similar to if-else statements or structures. You have your end with the brace, and you have Boolean expressions, and if it's false, you go to the next thing, and once you've done what you need to, then it kicks out and goes to the past the if-else structure. Well, this is acting very similar. And so here we go. And so this is what happens with a loop. So